Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new Puerto Rican stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I gave the car to my wife. Years ago, I used to be married to she who must not be named in my family. For the purposes of brevity, we shall call her Alice. Somewhat significant age gap when we got married. I was 27 and Alice was 19 at the time. We had our share of ups and downs, and during one particularly hard time about a year after we got married, we were sunk in credit card debt and had to move in with her mother, who had a whole bunch of chronic medical problems and no insurance. Stepdad is a shade tree mechanic who was not bad at it, actually, but couldn't get regular work because he had medical problems all his own. Move in, cut some costs, help family. It's the right thing to do, right? Problem was, Alice and I couldn't seem to both hold jobs at the same time. She would get laid off a week before I would start a new job, and vice versa. After about 9 months of this, I was like, duck it, I'ma get all the jobs. I get a job working weeknights. I get a weekend job. The temp service I signed up with was really aggressive and got me decent weekday jobs on a regular basis. Only problem was, these jobs were over an hour away from her mum's and I'd be so dead tired from working, I'd crash at my brother's place which was 10 minutes away the next city over. I'd only be able to go home to see Alice every few days, then have to get up a few hours later so I could beat the rush hour into work. 4 months pass, and we find ourselves slowly inching from the red into the black. One day, Alice lets me know that she got a job. It's about 20 minutes away, and only I have a working car. She has friends that can give her a ride when I'm not home, and I take her to work or pick her up every chance I get. This goes on for about a month. Finally she says, I think I need my own car. It's all good, she's an independent girl, and I can see how hard it is for her to be so dependent on other people. I do some quick math and figure it would take about 4 months for us to get enough money together to get a decent beater that won't die in a year. She nods her understanding. I see her disappointment, and my man pride cannot take it. I level up and go beast mode. I start taking side jobs, mostly construction, with a friend of a friend who pays on a per-day basis to fill out the times when I have blanks on weekdays when the temp agency hasn't got anything for me. And I pull double shifts for the weekend job. I sleep an average of 4 or 5 hours a day. 3 weeks later, I have purchased a car for her, a cute little 4x4 that I saw on Craigslist. Mechanically sound, but was dirty AF. I park it at a friend's place and over the course of a week, give that grimy bastard the most comprehensive cleaning of its life. You could have eaten off the wheel wells, I shit you not. My good buddy Nathan springs for some cheap but nice visuals, wheel paint, seat covers, floor mats, etc., and we make it look even better. When we move it out of the garage, my friend's mum swears it can't be the same car and I have to prove it to her. I leave my car with Nathan, and drive home in her car. Timing is perfect. I'm about 10 minutes away from home when Alice calls me on my cell. She wants to go get some groceries. I let her know I'll be there in a bit and park by the curb one house down. I knock on the door and tell her to come out so we can go. She steps out and looks around. Where's your car? Left it at Nathan's. What did you drive? That. I point at the car. Whose car is that? Yours. She takes a couple of seconds to process that single word. Then, her jaw drops and Alice runs back inside screaming, Mum, insane RN got me a car. The sad, a couple of years go by. Alice has learned how to use a manual transmission because her baby has one. Between myself and her stepdad, Alice has learned to change the oil herself, and even took an active part in replacing the brake pads and all 4 shock absorbers on her baby. She bathes her baby herself. She has learned to take care of her baby. MIL's medical problems are mostly manageable with meds now, and stepdad is getting almost regular work thrown his way by friends and previous customers. We have moved out of her mum's place, and I'm only working 2 jobs now. Credit card debt is down by 80%. Alice also has a steady job, and is thinking of going back to school. And then I find out she is cheating on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There is no third time. There must be payback. My man pride demands it. The mad ***. A week after the nuke drops on our marriage, I've worked out the problem. She's already gotten her stuff and moved out by then. I call her up to meet. Lunchtime, her work. Just to talk, I say. There's a little pseudo-eco-industrial picnic area right by the building she works at, and there's a fair amount of foot traffic. There's some chit-chat, and she makes a vague appeal to work things out by dragging my dead dad into it. Hell no. You don't have the right to do that. You had a 1% chance, but that just flat out dropped it to 0. I cut her off mid-sentence. I'm taking the car. Your car. What? The pink slip is in my name. I'm taking back my property right now. And if you don't hand over the keys right now, I'm going to report it stolen to the police. But you gave that car to me. I'd been talking in a normal, conversational tone up until this time. Her betrayal rams into my chest for the 1000th time. My voice hardens. I didn't give the car to you. I gave the car to my wife. Her brain still isn't firing on all cylinders. She asks, but how will I get to work? Get your boyfriend to drive you. I'm still looking at her. Her face goes slack as she realizes that I am not kidding. I take the keys, get into her baby, and drive off. I look at her as we pass. She still has the same look on her face. And I drive all the way home with the biggest shit-eating grin on mine. The next one is titled, What an Awful Woman. I worked at a fairly well-known restaurant in a small, northern New England city as an assistant manager. The owners were very successful restaurateurs with several successful, non-chain establishments, and spent maybe a day or two a month in our location. The rest of the time there was a general manager in charge. We'll call her Jan. Jan was about as type A as they come. She was a middle-aged woman, but beautiful and petite. She always looked put together and primped. Jan had started with the owners a decade earlier in their first restaurant as a server and had worked her way up to general manager over the years. At first, I just thought she had extremely high standards, which I respected. I have high standards as well and take pride in my work. I had been impressed by how the kitchens were spotless, the staff was immaculate, like run a white gloved hand under the back of the oven and it comes back white kind of clean. And the food was always top quality. I had frequently been a customer and was thrilled that I got the job there. I had been in the business for a decade and that restaurant was the place in our area. I was so excited. Unfortunately, I quickly learned why everything is so shining and perfect. Jan was a tyrant. She was the kind of boss who soured the mood of the entire staff like a storm cloud hovering over us that never went away. Nothing was ever good enough and the standards changed from day to day. On a good day, she would shut herself up in the office and then leave early. Good days were very rare and could turn into bad days at the drop of a dime. On bad days, you couldn't be perfect enough, and she would come up with new rules and regulations just to punish people. If a host called out sick, they were literal children, she would berate them on the phone and make them cry. If a cook made a mistake on a plate, she would humiliate them in front of the staff, accuse them of doing it on purpose and then give us all the silent treatment for hours after. Seriously. If someone's cash out was off, even by a few cents, she would accuse them of theft and force me to cut down their hours. As a fellow manager, I was mostly spared her awful behavior, though I had to hear about her treatment from my staff almost every day. All of this was just run-of-the-mill bad boss stuff until it came time for our yearly staff evaluation meetings. This is where Raul enters the story. Raul was a hard-working dishwasher who had moved to our state from Puerto Rico a few years earlier and spoke English with some difficulty. Whenever I had to go over anything official with him, we would have a coworker translate between us to be sure we were both communicating clearly. Jan refused this courtesy to Raul. This made his evaluation pretty difficult. Raul managed to communicate to us that due to recent cuts in his hours, he would be forced to get a second job to pay the bills. Something about this absolutely set Jan off. She told him she would fire him if he dared. I could see plainly on the intake paperwork in front of me that Raul had been hired with the understanding that it would be a full-time position, so I pointed that out. Jan was furious, but agreed through gritted teeth that if Raul agreed not to get a second job, she would bump his hours up to at least 35 hours a week. It was stated as clear as day and I documented it in my daily manager logbook. Work went on as usual after that and I didn't think much of this meeting again for a few months. Another time a while later, while filing out information for tax returns, Jan called me into the office. I could tell she had pulled the tiny room apart looking for something. All the information about our Puerto Rican employees is gone, she told me with a mixture of panic and suspicion. I looked at the files in question, and they all seemed to be in order, so I was confused and told her I couldn't help. A few minutes later, I walked back in the office to find her arguing with Rosa, our most talented chef and a Puerto Rican native. Rosa was perfectly fluent in English. No, Rosa. Jan was speaking to Rosa as though she were hard of hearing or mentally slow. Where is your green card? What are you talking about? Rosa was confused. Are you an illegal or something? Is that why one of you broke in here? To hide the proof? Jan wasn't yelling, but her eyes were cold and flashing with rage. What? Rosa was starting to get angry now. It suddenly clicked for me, so I interrupted. Jan, you do realize that Puerto Rico is a United States territory, right? Of course I know that. Jan snapped back. Okay, so you know that Rosa has a social security number like any other American native. Oh. Right. Never mind Rosa, you can go back to work. Jan did not apologize for accusing Rosa of theft. I was so done with this place after that. Then it got worse. Jan did all kinds of little things like that and she never apologized. I had already gotten a job offer for a place closer to my house when the final straw came. I was the closing manager one day and got in just before the dinner rush to see Raul storming out the back door. He didn't speak much English, but his expletives were very clear. Jan had lied about raising his hours to 35 per week, so Raul had gotten the second job he talked about. When Jan found out, she fired him, but not before saying something about how all you illegals are the same. She was really fixated on these American citizens being illegal for some reason. By this point, I hated this woman too. She once told me my clothing made me look poor in front of the whole staff. I was wearing what she made me wear. Since I knew I would be leaving soon anyway, I told Raul he should go after our boss for wrongful termination since I had documented proof with Jan's signature that he had been promised more hours and that Jan had broken the agreement, not Raul. The last time I saw Jan was on my way out of Raul's lawyer's office after giving a deposition about several labor laws she had violated. At least the ones that I knew about. Apparently, there were many others she had broken in front of other employees. She couldn't even look me in the eye. The best part? At my deposition, I learned that Jan was actually the one who was illegally in the country. Her green card had recently expired. She was Canadian. She ended up being sent back to Canada as a result of this case and no one has heard from her since. Raul was granted 6 months of unemployment pay, plus the restaurant had to pay his legal fees. They closed that location not long after. Maybe they should hire their managers more carefully next time? The next one is titled, "They made sure justice was served not only for them, but for the entire town." A crummy repair shop in Moab, Utah, messed up our car which left us stranded in a nearby national park. We called and demanded they tow the vehicle in, and while they said they'd come get us they never did. When we talked with park rangers they were quite familiar with the shop, the biggest in town, and with a terrible reputation. We were on our honeymoon, and had more time on our hands than I imagine most travelers do. We went to the shop, demanded a full refund, and when they refused we sat out front on the curb in our camp chairs for 2 days with homemade protest signs. I was overwhelmed with the support we got from locals, who honked and waved, stopped and chatted with us and shared their own stories of horror. The owner called the cops on us, but the joke was on him. We'd already notified the police we'd be protesting, and were well within our rights in doing so. In the end the shop owner refunded all our money and left visibly distressed when we told him that even with the refund, we weren't sure we were ready to leave town. Eventually, we did, but not before filing complaints with the Better Business Bureau and every review site we could find. They'd already been booted from the Chamber of Commerce. We ended up becoming friends with an awesome local mechanic and having a great story to tell. Justice was served. And without a tinge of guilt. The last one is titled, "Brother Gets Me Kicked Out for Coming Out So I Don't Help Him in His Final Hour." My twin brother, Sebastian, and I have never ever been close. In fact, he made life hell growing up, and my parents didn't help by playing favorites. Getting him better stuff on our birthday, only going to see films he liked at the cinema and giving him extra money for housework despite us doing the same amount of work. He would always put me down, belittle me, bully me with his friends at school, break my stuff, and he'd then blame me and was just a pain in general. Growing up, the only people I knew to rely on was my older sister Kelly, my cousin Kai, and my best friend Isaac, who all knew what an awful person my brother was. Anyway, cut to when I was 17 and I had my first girlfriend, someone I loved very much. We didn't have intimacy cause she wanted to wait till her 18th birthday to lose her virginity, but it turns out that she was having an affair with my brother behind my back for half the time we were together and only got caught when it was revealed she was pregnant. I was crushed. She knew how much I hated my brother, and she saw some of the awful things he did to me, but she still went and did that. Cheating is bad enough, but to do it with him of all people. I punched him in the face and broke his nose and made him lose a tooth, but according to my parents, I'm the one in the wrong. And now we have to help this girl who is carrying my brother's child and have to help support them. My brother then said he had no intention of being a father and told my girlfriend to take care of it. She then ran out of town, and I never saw her again. I don't know if she had the baby or not, but all I know was that she was gone, and my folks were still praising my brother as the golden child. I was still the black sheep and failure as usual. Another year goes past, and my brother and I still despise each other, but I had started dating again. It was a long while, but I found someone. I found a boy I liked. I come out of the closet, and this new guy, Daniel, I had met at college, caught my eye. He was deaf, and I studied sign language out of boredom, so we got talking, and things just seemed to click. We date, fall in love, bring him to my friend Isaac's party to introduce him to friends, and everything feels great. At this point, the only one who knew I was bi was Isaac, but one day walking into a cinema holding my boyfriend's hand, I bump into my evil twin. He points, laughs, and says some homophobic remarks. I tell him to go duck himself, and I go see a movie with my arm around my boyfriend. When I got home after dropping my boyfriend home, I knew I'd be facing something as I walked through the front door. I saw both my parents on the sofa, my mother crying about how on earth could she have given birth to someone so disgusting. Was it too much to hope she saw the light and was talking about my brother? But nope, she was talking about me and how I'm a stain on our family's name. My father gets up to yell at me and spout homophobic remarks and slurs. At this point, I see my brother up the staircase with a grin on his face. He then comes down and says he's uncomfortable with sharing a room with a bisexual, and my folks kicked me out there and then. With what little clothes and money I had, I went to Isaac's house, and his family took me in, where I stayed for 6 months, actually experiencing familial love and affection, and Isaac's mother and stepdad, I consider my own parents now. Eventually, me, Daniel, and Isaac all get a 2-bedroom flat together, and all is good for the time being. So, cut to December last year, me and my boyfriend, now husband, Daniel, are married. Isaac was my best man, and my sister and cousin Kai walked me down the aisle. I have a brilliant job in graphic design, have my own house by the sea, and life has never been better. However, I got a call from my sister that my brother was in the hospital. I hadn't thought about him that much over the 9-year period since I was kicked out, but being reminded of his existence brought up a lot of painful memories for me. I was told by my sister that Sebastian wanted to see me and that it was urgent, so I went to the hospital he was in and met my sister outside the front entrance. I ask her what this is all about, but she doesn't tell me, and that I need to ask my twin. So, I arrive where my brother is, who have my parents at his side, and my folks actually look happy to see me, as if what they did to me hadn't happened. And Sebastian also looked really pleased to see me. It's safe to say something was off. Eventually, I ask what's going on and why was I even here, to which my brother tells the family to leave us two alone. He looks so weak, as before he used to intimidate me so much. He told me that he was dying from kidney failure and has been for the past few years, but now he didn't have long left. I knew immediately where this was going. He then said he always regretted that we never got along, at which point I told him, no. He looked confused and asked what I was on about, so I simply told him I wasn't going to donate my kidney to save him. He looked as if I had just sh*t in his food. He then went on about how bad the situation was and that he really was sorry for all the things we did to each other growing up. Like, excuse me? We did to each other? I told him that I just wanted a brother growing up that cared and loved me, who wouldn't try and break me every day for 18 years. He then called in our mum and dad and told them that I wasn't going to give up my kidney. They then started to spout off that I owe them for my existence and that I have a duty to look after family. I asked them where the duty was when they kicked me out of the house, or where the duty was every time my brother gave me a black eye, or their duty was to look after their grandchild when Sebastian decided he didn't want to be a father. I said for all the things he's done, from outing me to having an affair with my girlfriend and abandoning his child, and that this was the universe's and my way of finally giving back what he dished out to bite him in the butt. I then turned around and walked out of the room, having that be the last time I ever saw Sebastian again. Not sure why they'd want to buy his kidney anyway. I walked past my sister, who gave me a look. I gave her a look back, who then, in turn, gave me a look that said, "I understand." After leaving the hospital, I felt as if a great weight had been taken off my shoulders. I went home and never looked back, pleased with my decision. Now, last week, I get a call from my sister calling to inform me that Sebastian had died. She asked if I was okay, and I said I was, and that I didn't really feel anything, in all honesty. She said she understood to a degree, as Sebastian hadn't been all that kind to her over the years either. I had my husband and Isaac there to support me. Honestly, at this point, Isaac may as well be our adopted child, since he's living with us till this whole situation with the world is over. The next day, I was getting calls and texts from family members I hadn't spoken to in years, telling me that I'm going to hell for being a bad son, being a bad brother, and for being AF*GGOT, and that me and my husband don't deserve children. Hubby and I have been looking into adoption and surrogacy. This makes me second guess my choice of not giving my brother my kidney. Even in death, he's making things harder for me. I did wonder if I was a bad person and if I made the wrong decision, but I knew that if I was in that position, I would have been left for dead. Screw him. Other bits of information that may clear things up: his renal failure was from living a hardcore lifestyle of drugs and alcohol. My folks and sister did get themselves tested to see if they're matches, and none of them were. I disowned them of being my family years ago, apart from Kelly, so when I got married, I took my husband's last name and hyphened it with Isaac's last name, to which his folks were very pleased about. Some family, Kai's folks and my dad's brother, have actually called to see how I'm doing and say they don't judge me for what happened. Others, however, have continued with said abuse, whom I have now blocked. If he had been a good brother throughout my life, I'd have done it without a second thought. I'd have done the same for Kelly, Kai, Isaac, and my husband. But I felt he didn't deserve it. It's unlikely I'll ever see my parents again, and I'll make sure my children will never meet them. My revenge to them will be being a better parent than they ever were. Thanks for listening.